It's a very pleasant, good Saturday morning, and welcome to our special Saturday TAPS program. I'm Greg Green, and this is our final TAPS program of the season. Starting on Flag Day, we've held TAPS on Tuesday at the Vermilion County War Museum, and also have traveled to the former federal courthouse next door to the War Museum, and also to Spring Hill Cemetery. Back in the spring, we visited with Troy Pate of the Georgetown American Legion and talked about ending this special season on a Saturday here in Georgetown with a focus on Civil War veterans buried in this cemetery. We also were in contact with the Georgetown Historical Society, inviting their members to join us here today. Our TAPS program is associated with TAPS Across America and TAPS for Veterans programs, which are held at various locations around the country. Maybe you've noticed the polo shirts that Vince and JC and I are wearing that say TAPS Across America. Some of our members have actually participated in the 100 Nights of TAPS at the Gettysburg National Cemetery. Our purpose is to honor those brave men and women who served our country from the beginning of our nation right through those who are serving today. And now, here's Larry Weatherford to tell us about some of the Civil War veterans buried here at the Georgetown Cemetery.
Thank you very much, Greg, and again, welcome everyone. We're going to be mentioning some names as we get to the conclusion of the program that probably have not been said aloud, many of those names, in over 100 years. I'm going to talk about a few of the Civil War veterans buried here in particular, and then we're going to actually read the names of every Civil War veteran buried here. That's a total of 77. And I think it's going to give us a little bit of an effect to hear those names again. You'll hear names that I know you've heard before, names you're familiar with, some you're probably not. But these are people who are buried here who served in the American Civil War. First, let's mention this is the Kiger Post, right here as they call it, number 204. And it's not just a piece of, some sort of concrete style post. It was a post like the American Legion. And it was of the Grand Army of the Republic. And those were all over Vermilion County. Vermilion County, of course, had more volunteers per capita in the American Civil War than any other county in the state of Illinois. So needless to say, almost every cemetery has a number of Civil War veterans buried there. And the reason it's named Kiger is after a gentleman. How many of you have been to the Methodist Church and seen the stained glass windows there? Just raise your hand if you've seen those. Okay, if you haven't, you should visit there, even if you're a Church of Christ or a Baptist or a Catholic or whatever. Ask them and they'll be happy to show you those. One of the individuals on the stained glass window is Tillman Dwight Kiger. And he was a young man in his late 20s when the American Civil War started. He volunteered with the 73rd Illinois Infantry. They were known as the Persimmon Regiment and also the Preacher Regiment. And they had more clergymen in the 73rd Illinois than any other regiment in the state of Illinois, maybe even the country. But as our good friend, the late Gene McComo, used to say, they said they had more preachers and they could cuss better than anybody else in the Union Army. I think they did. And these guys really were centered right here in Georgetown with Company D. And Tillman D. Kiger became the captain of Company D. And does anybody know the famous catchphrase that you still hear very often that was originated at Missionary Ridge with the 73rd Illinois Infantry? Anybody want to just yell that out if you know? Do you remember that, Emily? Rayanne? Do you recall it?
Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
That's right. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. They weren't up at the top of Missionary Ridge, but the 35th Illinois from this area was first across the Confederate lines. And the job of the 73rd was to pass that ammunition, and being the good preachers they were, they said, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. And I'll bet some of the guys said, damn it, right at the end. But don't quote me on that. But Tillman D. Kiger, he's not buried here. He's buried at Spring Hill Cemetery. And his stone was in 4 pieces on the ground when we first found it. And his stone was the very first one the Georgetown Illinois Civil War Roundtable had repaired. So it's in good shape right now, but is missing the very top. Somewhere along the line, somebody probably took it home with them. But Tillman D. Kiger is who this actual Grand Army of the Republic post is named after. And now let's look over here, see some flags right over in that area. On the little ridge, we'll get to the ones down here where our honor guard's standing. Up on the ridge there, you see some flags. That's the George Washington Holloway grave site. He and his family are buried there. He's the other gentleman that you'll see in the stained glass window at the Methodist Church. Wash Holloway was about 10 years older than Tillman Kiger when the war started. He became best friends with Colonel Oscar Harmon of the 125th. He formed the Company D of the 125th Illinois Infantry. Both the 73rd and the 125th did their training and their marching and their drilling where the church is located now, which is why, as you'll see on the marker there, which is why they have their pictures in the stained glass window there. Wash's wife, Sophia, was best friends with Bess Harmon, and she and Bess went several times down south to visit their husbands when they were in the Civil War down in Tennessee. One thing she liked to brag about is she was coming out here. Wash was from Virginia, and she was from Massachusetts. She was on a riverboat headed in this direction. She had the opportunity, and she was a dainty little girl at the time coming this way, of dancing with the, I want to say, most portly, I think that's the best way to say it, general in the Union Army at the beginning of the Civil War, but the commander of forces for the Americans in the Mexican-American War, General Winfield Scott. So she always bragged about dancing with him. If you want to find out more about those folks, the Holloways, they have a special room at the Vermilion County Museum, and their daughter, Mrs. Thompson, had put that together for them, and she and her husband, John Thompson, credit themselves, as people all over the country do, but at least for this area, with inventing at their restaurant the hamburger. So you can thank those folks for that. And now let's look down here at the other flags where you see our gentleman standing there with their flag and the honor guard there for the local American Legion post. That's a gentleman whose stone is standing straight now that a few years ago was bent over like this. And the reason that it's standing straight now is because we did a dedication on it, a cleaning and resetting of that stone, maybe 4 years ago, I guess. And at that stone, as we do with all the stones that we set, or with new ones, or ones that we fix, we try to find relatives, and very often we can't do that. But we're very pleased to have, as we did at that particular dedication, some relatives of a man named Augustus LeSueur. Want to raise your hand so everybody can see you? Any other relatives? Raise your hand as well. I know that we have, 5 or 6 here, which is always nice. And Augustus LeSueur was a very brave man, a very loyal friend. He was in the 7th Illinois Cavalry, joined when he was 46 years old. And he was a grocer here in Georgetown. His brothers Victor and Prosper had moved on up with their father Pierre and his family to Danville. They're buried up there. And he decided to join the 7th Illinois Cavalry because his best friend, whose name was William Blackburn, that he had known when he lived down in Paris. It's kind of interesting. Most people who came here from France, as he did in 1851 with his family, for whatever reason, moved, once they got into America, to Paris, Illinois. So a large number of French people there, and they could speak French as well on up into the Civil War, and he used that against the rebels, really, by writing orders in French and being able to read orders that they'd written in French, thinking nobody else could read them. Augustus was a sergeant major of the 7th Illinois Cavalry. He's on Grierson's Raid. You've probably heard of that, where they cut right through Mississippi, drawing about 40,000 troops away from Vicksburg, which was General Grant's idea, he and General Sherman, to get General Pemberton to send his men to grab those nasty Yankees coming down through the middle of Mississippi and leave Vicksburg alone so they could actually occupy it, and it worked. On the next to last day of the raid, May 1st, 1863, they come to the Tickfaw River in Amite County, Mississippi, right on the border with Louisiana. Their goal was to end up in Baton Rouge, not that far from Baton Rouge at that time. They get to the Tickfaw and Walls Bridge. Colonel Blackburn decides he's going to attack very bravely, not too wisely, but very bravely, the Confederates on the other side of that bridge. When he does, he gets shot. Several others are wounded. Some die right there. And tell, just lying there on Walls Bridge in southern Mississippi, that Colonel Blackburn was probably not going to live. Best friend of Augustus LeSueur. Now, if you've seen the movie, The Horse Soldiers, how many have seen The Horse Soldiers? Movie with John Wayne. That's based on Grierson's race. Near the very end, when William Holden's character says he's staying behind, that's what Augustus LeSueur said. That's based on his character saying, no, I'm staying here with my friend. When Colonel Grierson and Colonel Prince both said, you need to go, he said, no, I'm staying with him. He did. And they told him, just as they did in the movie, even though they got it out of sequence, there was no Andersonville then, but you will go to a prison camp. And he did. But he stayed behind, caring for his friend, Colonel Blackburn, for 17 days. And sure enough, what happened at the end of 17 days, the Confederates decided to march those guys for about 11 miles, put them on a train, send them to Richmond, where they stayed in the prison for a few months, not a long time, thankfully. They were traded. He comes back, no longer a sergeant major, is made a lieutenant, moves from Company A, the men based here, into lieutenant of Company M. He's buried right over there, a man you can even tie to horse soldiers, but his loyalty and his bravery really stand out for him. Now, there are a number, as we say, of soldiers buried here. 77. The way we've counted them, we've taken some liberties of taking some names off from the records that we found because we found out they were World War I, Spanish American, whatever. But out of those 77, there are 76 Union soldiers, one Confederate. Now, he's buried. I put a flag down there. He took the oath back to serving and being an American citizen, was a good American citizen after the war as well. His name is Columbus Franklin Paxton. He's buried right down there. You'll see an American flag. You can't see it from where you're sitting, I don't think, but he's buried down there. Now, he moved here with his family. I have a picture of him and his family. He had a house full of kids. I'm talking maybe 10 or 11. One of them was named after him, but with a different middle name, Columbus Sherman Paxton. Does that name ring a bell with anyone by any chance? Columbus Sherman Paxton. Tara? Tell us who he is. You should know.
Yeah.
You don't know?
Yeah. Well.
Okay. Sherman Paxton was honored a few years ago at the Vermilion County Museum as one of the business leaders of Vermilion County. Sherman Paxton formed the Grab It Here grocery chain. His father is C.F. Paxton. And so they're both buried right down in that area. C.F. became a very proud American, like so many Confederate soldiers did, after the American Civil War, settling here in Vermilion County. Now, what we're going to do right now is we want to honor every one of these people because when you think about it, a cemetery is really an open-air museum. There's a story behind every stone. If we did a little research on every one of these soldiers, that you see a grave marker, either one of the, this is Spanish-American War, grave marker here, but there are Civil War grave markers everywhere. Some, like we saw over there, of names I've read already, which before coming here today, on regular markers you wouldn't even know. Of the 77, there are probably another 3 or 4 at least Civil War soldiers here that just haven't been found yet being keyword. But behind every one of their stones, there's a story, just like there is for the ones that I'd mentioned here. What we're going to do now, Greg and I are going to read back and forth. He's going to read about the first 20, and I'll do the next 20 till we get to all of them. So Greg, if you'll come down here, we're going to read these names, as I said earlier, that probably have not been said. These names have probably not been said aloud, at least with their affiliation with the Army during the Civil War for maybe over 100 years. So Greg, if you'll start out, let's do that.
Oliver S. Baldwin, 25th Illinois Infantry. Benjamin Wesley Baum, 25th Illinois Infantry. James H. Blakeney, 125th Illinois Infantry. Henry Bowen, 11th Missouri Infantry. John W. Brigley, 5th Missouri Cavalry. Daniel Briles, 97th Indiana Infantry. Hiram Busby, 27th Indiana Infantry. Joseph S. Carroll, 86th Indiana Infantry. John Carter, 85th Illinois Infantry. Micah Clift, 31st Indiana Infantry. Jacob B. Clifton, 125th Illinois Infantry. Thomas Clow, 33rd Indiana Infantry. Jefferson L. Cook, 135th Illinois Infantry. S. J. Cook, 25th Illinois Infantry. Zacchaeus Cook, 125th Illinois Infantry. Wesley Dean, 173rd Ohio Infantry. John Don Carlos, 73rd Illinois Infantry. Peyton Douglas, 125th Illinois Infantry. John W. Downs, 133rd Illinois Infantry. Benjamin J. Edmonds, 73rd Illinois Infantry.
Oliver R. Finley, 125th Illinois Infantry. William Frazier, 125th Illinois Infantry. J.C. Gadd, 98th Illinois Infantry. Thomas Gray, 25th Illinois Infantry. C.M. Hawes, 125th Illinois Infantry. Cash Hawes, 150th Illinois Infantry. Andrew Hessler, 125th Illinois Infantry. George Hessler, 25th Illinois Infantry. William Hessler, 25th Illinois Infantry. Thomas Henton, 125th Illinois Infantry. George Washington Holloway, 125th Illinois Infantry. William Holstein, 7th West Virginia Cavalry. Reason Howard, 35th Illinois Infantry. John Johnson, 20th U.S. Colored Infantry. John P. Jones, 73rd Illinois Infantry. Isaac Judd, 150th Illinois Infantry. Robert M. Kilgore, 97th Indiana Infantry. Augustus LeSueur, 7th Illinois Cavalry. Alfred E. Lewis, 72nd Illinois Infantry. Peter D. Loper, 18th Wisconsin Infantry.
Claiborne Madden, 73rd Illinois Infantry. T. E. Madden, 73rd Illinois Infantry. Henry F. Martin, 34th Illinois Infantry. Henry Mock, 43rd Ohio Infantry. George Moore, 12th Illinois Infantry. William R. Moore, Regiment and State Unknown. Sylvester Morgan, 125th Illinois Infantry. Benjamin Onley, 70th Illinois Infantry. Charles C. Parker, 125th Illinois Infantry. Isaac Parks, 125th Illinois Infantry. Columbus Franklin Paxton, 6th Battalion, Virginia Reserve Infantry, CSA. David Reagan, 12th Illinois Infantry. Samuel Rednauer, 125th Illinois Infantry. Wiley Reed, 30th Kentucky Infantry. William Reed, 150th Illinois Infantry. Richard M. Rucker, 6th Indiana Cavalry. George Ryan, 25th Illinois Infantry. Thomas W. Scott, 125th Illinois Infantry. John C. Shannon, 1st Indiana Cavalry.
Eli M. Shepler, 54th Indiana Infantry. Christopher Shires, 73rd Illinois Infantry. W. H. Smith, 62nd Illinois Infantry. Reverend William O. Smith, Chaplain, 25th and 35th Kentucky Infantry. Timothy Stewart, 19th Indiana Infantry. Joseph Sweeney, 125th Illinois Infantry. Samuel Talley, 149th Indiana Infantry. D.S. Tucker, 125th Illinois Infantry. Stuart Tucker, 79th Illinois Infantry. 3 individual soldiers are buried here, no names and no regiments, all listed as unknown. Pleasant West, 25th Illinois Infantry. Elias White, 135th Illinois Infantry. John C. White, 5th Missouri State Militia Cavalry. William Whitlock, 125th Illinois Infantry. Andrew Jackson Walcott, 125th Illinois Infantry. And John H. York, 5th Illinois Cavalry. In honor of all those individuals fighting in the American Civil War and of every veteran buried here in Georgetown Cemetery, the American Legion Post, Dornblazer, right here in Georgetown, will now fire a volley and play taps in honor of all those veterans.